All right, guys, and here we are back with another episode of Whiskey and Wolves. My name's Evan, that's Chris, and we are here to debunk the bunk in dog training and talk today really specifically about how to alleviate stress in dogs. Some of the things that we've seen in pro dog training that are just like helpful, like tips and tricks to really help the average person understand their dog better and really understand what they're doing even sometimes that creates stress and how to alleviate that stress, right? But before we do that, dude, the other day, my wife, for those of you who don't know, right, my wife is actually retired military. And so we still have some base privileges running around, right? And we were in the exchange the other day and I ran across this bottle of Angel's Envy. Now take this for what it is, bro. Angel's Envy is like a longtime favorite of mine.
That's a good brand.
It's good, man.
I don't think we've had it on here yet.
And
but
no, the whiskey's good, like longtime favorite of mine. I drink it pretty regularly. Finished in port barrels, which kind of smooths things out some. Not so smoky, but like really rich.
Which I don't know a lot about ports, but port is a wine, correct? It's a very, very rich wine.
Yep. That's the word I'd use for sure.
And so what does that do? If you know, what is being in port barrels do to the whiskey? Do you know?
So kind of the same way that whenever we put these things in like oak barrels, right? Mm-hmm. We pick up those flavor profiles.
The oakiness.
Yeah, the oakiness and the smoke and the char that like, for instance, Jack Daniels is massively famous for, right? All that comes from what is like the cask, right? Like all the things that are made up in the cask end up in the whiskey, right? Which is why it's massively famous. But like when we started to play around with what casks, right? So like when they empty the port cask, they put whiskey in it.
So this should be pretty porty.
It is a little porty, you know? And so like, it's a little sweeter. It's even the color is just a little bit different. It's a little darker.
Yeah. It's like almost, what's the word? Not maroon, but,
Yep. It's just deeper.
Yeah.
Right.
Deep.
And take it for what it is. This is the single barrel, right? So this is one that the master distiller went, oh wait, this is almost a perfect whiskey for what we're looking for, right? And so, and again, this is the Angel's Envy Veterans Anchored in Pride Edition single barrel, right? So like we picked up that the other day, really specifically come on Whiskey and Wolves, man. So without further ado,
please,
yeah, okay,
yes,
great.
Please.
All right, I'm in. Oh, love that sound. Pay no attention, guys. I'm humming Star Trek while pouring whiskey. That seems appropriate somehow.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Oh, perfect. I love it. Get in there. And
cheers, my man.
Cheers, my brother. Yeah, as always. Well, that's fire.
Whoa.
You're welcome.
Whoa.
You're welcome. It's totally fine.
Okay, this is Whiskey and Wolves. We drink whiskey every time. We haven't had one like this before. I don't know if it's.
Did you realize that we drank Johnny Walker Blue in the last episode?
And I'm sorry. I hope you covered your ears. I wasn't talking anything bad. You are amazing. But this is something different. I don't know if it's the port or what it is.
No, it's finished in port, right? And so like it has a little sweetness in there that you didn't expect.
Like I could drink that for breakfast.
Yep. You can taste the grape coming through, right? Like it's actually really, really delicious.
That's seriously dangerous. Like in the best way possible. Oh my goodness.
Well, brother, if this is the rest of our day, it could be a worse one.
Goodness gracious.
It could be a worse one. I was going to go pick out Jim's this afternoon. I don't have to do that.
I don't think I'm going to do anything after this afternoon. Oh, that's really, really yummy.
I love when you come over and we don't do anything. It's like one of my favorite things.
It's one of my favorite habits. Or hobbies.
Yeah, no, it's great.
The cellars of Lincoln Henderson. Guys, seriously, give this a shot and let us know what you think. This is one of my favorites.
Put it in the comments, man.
I was not expecting that.
Take this for what it is. In these comments, right? Like, I want to see what you guys thought about even just the regular Angel's Envy, because they do a really nice blended as well. Like, and this isn't like super expensive. Maybe like, $40-$50 kind of a deal.
Very
like,
nice. Yeah, it's a good price point.
on the top side, right? Like, and for a single barrel, this was like right around 80, like really not bad. But no kidding. I mean, even just their regular blend in the grocery store, fantastic.
Yeah, good brand.
Really, really fantastic.
That's fantastic. All right, now I'm even more excited about this topic.
Yeah.
Which is a kind of a continuation of what we talked about last week.
It is, right? So you might even call this a part two, because we identified, stress signals in dogs the last time we were on. And this time we're looking about like, how do we alleviate that? So let's start simple, right? Let's start easy. We know that, stress is one of the most overlooked emotions in dogs, right? And so, and we know that there's some anthropomorphization that happens in that and some other things where like we're looking for human characteristics where they don't belong. Right. So when we see these things like big head turns or big eyes or pinned ears or lip licks, whenever we're engaging with a dog, like, tell us a little bit about how you kind of, pull yourself back and alleviate that a little bit.
Sure. One of the things that we're talking about today, last week, you just said, last week we talked about the dog. This time we're talking about you and what you can do and what you may be doing to inadvertently create it and encourage this behavior, right? One of the main problems I have with clients, and is humans that are treating their dogs like babies. Right. We've talked about this a couple times on this podcast. Tough. You and I talk about it all the time. But to a dog, right, being treated like a baby isn't being treated like a baby. It's being treated like a king. You're telling that dog that they are in charge. You get everything you want because you are in charge, right? Dogs are pack animals. They are not, they don't have the same brain functionality that human beings do. So by treating these dogs like babies, you're giving them literally everything they want and you're building a sense of entitlement, right? And this sense of entitlement, I'm owed this thing because I am who I am, right? And you're not giving them an opportunity to earn
what they
get.
One might say we are spoiling dogs. Is that
spoiling?
Is that right?
Yes, I think it's synonymous. I think the same way. You're exactly right. You can say the same thing. Right. Entitled or spoiled. Dogs can get spoiled the same way that kids do. And I think it does lead to this type of behavior. Bifurcate that a little bit, right? And yes, I think a lot of these problems stem from people babying their dogs. But more so, I think people accidentally or inadvertently encourage this behavior, this fear behavior, because human nature, what is our human nature when we see a creature, whether it's a dog, a human, a cat, suffering? What do we want to do? We want to help them.
Oh, for
right.
Sure.
We want to go over there and we want to soothe them. But if my dog is showing some of these signs, some of these fear signs, right? These stress signs, and I walk over, I'm like, oh no, baby, you're okay. You're okay. You're fine. What is that? That's a reward.
Yeah. It's
right.
Validation.
Every time. Right. You're validating that. You're validating the fear and you're encouraging the behavior.
So one of the things that we talk about all the time at K-Pro, and this is a big word, right? That, kind of sums up some of the things that you were talking about a little bit, is we talk about the act of neotenization, right?
Neotenization, another big word.
I know. I'm full of them, right? But like neotenization is the idea that we imbue baby-like characteristics onto something that's not a baby, right? And to your point, I agree. Like a lot of the outcomes of that can be really deleterious because you don't let that individual, being the dog in this case, you don't let that individual grow.
Yes.
Right. We keep them in that little box of being a baby. Right. And I've seen dogs like, I'll give you a good, for instance, in a brief case study, man, there's a 9-year-old AM staff that's coming to training with us at K-Pro that, has arousal modulation issues, can't, manage its own emotions. Like, there's some stuff going on. Right. And on top of that, at some point it got so bad, right, that like it hit the end of a leash real hard, hurt its neck, had some other stuff go on. Right. And all because we didn't allow that dog to grow up naturally and become an adult dog. Right. Because adult dogs, dogs, I think, are this, right. I think they're as susceptible to a certain amount of, and this is a hot button word these days that we got to be careful with, but I want to use it specifically here. I think dogs are susceptible to grooming in a lot of the same ways that humans are. And whenever a child is groomed into a certain relationship, right, they get stuck at that original point, right? And they never get to grow up past that until they deal with that. You know what I mean?
Let me say it the same exact thing a different way.
Do it,
right? And I think you're completely correct.
Yeah.
But whether you have a teenage son, teenage daughter, or a dog who's maturing into a puppy, into a dog, if they aren't allowed to face their challenges, right? We're talking about stress.
Yeah.
If you put this dog into a stressful situation and don't allow them to self-soothe or self-regulate, then they don't learn how to do it.
they never manage the coping skills. And that's the point.
Exactly.
Yes.
You have to allow your dog to figure out that they can self-soothe, that they can regulate their own energy, that they can calm themselves down.
And nobody else is going to do it for them.
Right. You shouldn't be doing it. You shouldn't be doing it for your teenager, and you shouldn't be doing it for your dog.
Right.
Because these are skills that they can build themselves. But if every time that dog gets a little anxious or gets a little scared and you're there and like, oh, no, come on, let's get out of here. Let's get out of here.
It's okay.
Then they'll never learn to deal with that situation.
Right.
Right. And so I think and we talked about this last time, I think stress is healthy.
No, it is. And a lot of times in training, we do this really specifically through exposure therapies, right?
Yes.
Where like we'll walk a dog in and out of stress.
Yes.
Kind of in this almost like ebb and flow or undulating kind of a situation to really help dogs build some of those abilities, right? Like we don't expect every baby that comes out the womb to know how to do their taxes, right? But like, we walk them into arithmetic and geometry and algebra, and, we build the skills in people that help us do that. So for me, part of alleviating stress in dogs has always been model the behavior you'd like to see.
100%. Everything, right? Energy flows down leash.
Right. But like model the behavior you'd like to see instead of producing a response to behavior that you feel like might make things okay. Right. So like there's this thing that dog training clients do a lot of, right? Where they'll go, they'll see their dog freaking out. Either they're barking, snapping, snarling, growling, or they're whining, howling, moaning, crying. Right. And because that vocalization, we can tell that there's an imbalance there, and they'll go in there and they'll go, but it's okay, baby. Everything's fine. And they're petting their dog, and their dog is losing their mind. Right. And this is the same thing we do in canine work where, like, hey, we want a dog to like, bark, snap, snarl, and growl at somebody on command. Whenever they exhibit the response to stimulus that we have in that scenario, we come in and go, oh, good job, buddy. Good job. Right. How does a dog know the difference linguistically? They don't, is the answer, right? And so a lot of people are creating a lot of their own reactivity that they're now calling something else, somewhat other thing that, they've invented, right? Because they have built a dog who understands that it gets reinforced through the reactivity.
Any behavior that is rewarded will be continued, period. So if you reward,
wait. Say that one more time.
Thank you for taking that. Yeah. Thank you. A behavior that is rewarded or encouraged through positive feedback will be continued, period. So if your dog barks, growls, whines, tucks his tail, any of these things, and you give a positive reinforcement for that, you are encouraging that behavior, and that behavior will continue.
I agree.
So what do you do on the flip side, right? What do? You reward the behavior you want instead of the behavior you're getting.
Let me ask this question. What happens if all the behavior my dog's exhibiting in the moment is something I'm uncomfortable with?
So, and that's a big one, right?
Because this is what happens with reactivity a lot.
Yes,
right?
You're exactly right. It is very stressful to be in a situation where your dog is going nuts and people are looking at you and it's very stressful and you think you're doing something wrong. There isn't an easy answer, but the answer is you sit there and deal with it.
Right. So,
because you deal with that. Scar, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're okay.
But you deal with that short-term pain, knowing that there's going to be a long-term gain.
Benefit, right? Exactly.
You deal with it in the moment so that you teach your dog, no, one, you're safe. You are fine because I'm here and I'm here to guide you and support you in what we are going through right now.
Right.
But we're not going to act that way.
Right.
So, and when you correct yourself and when you get to that position where you're giving me your attention, guess what? I'm going to come alive and you're going to have the best time.
Yeah. So for me, right, like I talk about this all the time with clients where I'm like, look, dude, I liked what you said, right? Like short-term pain for long-term gain, right? Return on investment, right? Like, hey, listen, sometimes we do the hard thing in order to get a big one back.
Let me make sure to be really clear. When I say short-term pain, I'm not talking about physical pain. Right. We're not talking about a correction. I'm not talking about pain.
Yes.
Sorry. No. I just want to make that clear.
But emotional pain, right? Social stigma, right? Like all those things in my mind end up in that same category as pain, right? Because like at the end of the day, if you're embarrassed, that's painful. That's uncomfortable. You don't want to be in that. Right. But the reality of the situation is is that if I take the dog out of the situation that they're reacting to, right? I rewarded the dog for his behavior.
And you justify the fear.
Right.
Right. You justify, oh no, there was a reason for you to be scared.
If it's fear, what if it's, hey, I'm driven predatorily? Either way, right? Like, it's like, hey, the thing that made you want to produce a distance increasing vocalization, right? I took that stimulation away, right? Whether I got nervous and took you away, or whether I thought, hey, I can't handle this and took you away, or whatever it is, right? And what's really difficult for a lot of people is that self-mastery, right? And so, one of the things that I think is really, really important for people to understand is that self-mastery is really important in this, right?
We're going to talk about self-mastery today, huh?
Yeah, a little bit, right?
I'm in.
Yeah. And so like self-mastery is like really important in this, right? Now, what do I mean by self-mastery? This is a thing that we talk about in the dog training community that some other communities talk about as well. We've been a part of other communities that talk about a certain amount of self-mastery because like, anytime you are, how do I want to describe this? Anytime you're under a certain amount of stress, right? Whether that be fearful stress or extrinsic stress, really in almost any way, right? Your ability to cope with that stress, understand the stress is really important. And so one of the things that I give people all the time that I think is very helpful for the endeavor of self-mastery is the idea between what's happening to you and what's happening around you. Right. So the things that are happening around you oftentimes aren't happening to you. Right. But
even though they can feel personally,
I was going to say, but we respond to them as though they are, right? Because like, oh my God, they're looking at me. Right. Well, that's happening around you. That's not happening to you. Right. Like nobody's actually physically touching you, talking to you a lot of times. Right. Like some people in these situations where their dog is drawing a lot of attention their way. Right. Like they want to run away from that because maybe they have some, social anxiety, or, maybe it's just the generalized anxiety that almost everybody has. Right. But, understanding the difference between what's happening around you and what's happening to you is a definition by which I think a lot of people could benefit, right? Because what's happening to you is something that needs to be actionable, right? So like if I walk out my front door that morning and I'm sick to my stomach, right? I actually am queasy. That's happening to me. I can feel it in my body. I understand a certain amount of what my body's trying to tell me in that moment, right? That like, hey, your stomach's not okay, and that maybe you need to rest, right? Oftentimes that's accompanied with a feeling of, fatigue, right? Where like, I don't want to be out and I don't want to do things, right? Really pretty normal experience for a lot of people to go through, right? But that's what's happening to you. That's a great example of like, hey, that's happening actually to you. Like, when the telemarketers call, that's happening around you. You know what I mean? Like those things don't really have any real impact on your personage, right? When somebody's staring at you or even talking about you from across the room, right? Like that's happening around you. That's not happening to you.
And both can seem very real.
And they can seem very personal. But there is
the distinction. And I think the distinction is very important.
Yeah. And man, it can feel really personal, right? Like it can, even myself, right? Like 100%. I'm not saying, hey man, if you feel feelings in that place, you're broken. That's not true. That's normal. That's human, right? But the opportunity to stay present for your dog, continue to model great behavior through that stress moment, right? Is like really, really, really important. And in some of my clients over the years, I know because I've watched their growth and they've thanked me for it later, right? Have really, really appreciated this distinction between what's happening to you and what's happening around you, right? Those two things are different things. And like that can be very empowering, I think.
So this episode just took a turn.
Let's go turn.
For the better, I believe.
Let's go. Yeah.
I think we have an opportunity right now to talk directly to some people that are struggling.
Okay.
And maybe you would agree with this, maybe you won't. 95% of the dog problems I see are their humans. And I'm not putting fault on their humans.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a misunderstanding, or maybe it's the way that life is happening to and around you, right?
Yeah, sure.
We're talking about an episode about so many dogs dealing with stress and fear and anxiety. We are too.
Of course,
right?
we are.
All of the owners are as well.
Yeah, of course.
But here's my point, right? You're just talking about being there present for that dog, right?
Yeah.
Being there to be able to help this dog through a situation. Let me tell you a trick. If you're able to be there for your dog and get them through this situation that they're having a trouble, you see where I'm going? If you're able to get your dog through this situation, right? And get them from a point of like, no, I'm not going to correct you. I'm not going to praise you right now. I want you to work through this. And then when they do work through this, because they do, they all do, right? You've seen it hundreds of times. I've seen it hundreds of times. They do. It's a matter of time. You can only say scared for so long. Eventually another emotion is coming up. Usually it's going to be boredom and then excitement. Right? So when you watch your dog go through that and you have the patience to sit there and be that guiding force for your dog and be that structure for your dog and be that strength for your dog, something happens. Yeah. Something happens for you, because what you get to do is you get to use that animal, that creature, what it was really intended to do.
Oh, tell me
You get to use that dog to help yourself live a better life.
Ooh.
That is the only reason I am sitting in this chair right now.
Come on, tell me.
The only reason I am sitting in this chair right now is I used dogs as an excuse to live a better life. And if you are able, to sit there and be that positive presence for your dog, you have the ability to do it for yourself.
And take this for what it is, right? So like I walk down that same road often with clients, right? So over the years, the number of clients where, I've looked at them and said, hey, I'm going to engage in a mindfulness experiment here real quick. And we're going to walk into a place where you feel strong, calm, and empowered in order to handle this situation, right? And like we close our eyes and I walk them through a quick mindfulness and holy cow, they come out the other side a lot better. The number of clients that I'll tell you, I think that we've helped personally as well, I think is a non-zero number. I mean, I've had, social workers and pastors come to work for me, and most often the answers that I get from those folks are, man, I do more good work here than I ever did there. Right. And it's because we're a lot of times in professional training, we're in your homes, right? We're actually in people's lives. Like we're a part of their everyday motion. Right.
And dogs don't lie.
Oh no.
Right.
Dogs
and so
liars,
when we come in and we look at this dog, whether we're there for an hour or whether we get to spend weeks with this dog, we see some things.
Dude, my favorite on that topic, right, is anytime I'm doing basic obedience and I'm like, all right, you guys are going to do this for, just pop them out for like 5, 3-minute sessions a day. You know what I mean? And just like work these little things and you'll be surprised where you go. And then I show up and I know that they haven't done anything since the last time I was there, because I walk in and I ask the dog for the behavior, knowing that like either the dog's going to exhibit or it's not. And if it's not, it's because they didn't work it, because dogs are really eager to work. Most of the time, really want to make us happy. They really want to make us happy, right? And they really want to be in relationship with us, right? It's the only animal that we have in the animal kingdom, as I know, that really wanted at that level, right? And so whenever I see dogs that like I walk in and I'll go, all right, buddy, you ready? Sit.
They look at you confused.
Oh man, they look at me like nothing's ever happened. I've never heard that word before. I look at the people and I'm like, what'd you guys do this last week? Tell me. You know what I mean? Like, it's too good, because I know the answer is I didn't do nothing, bro. Like, I expected this dog to train itself. And then here's my favorite thing is then the stress gets on the people, right? And you got to be careful about this in professional dog training. Stress is really powerful, right? So the stress get on the people, right? And like too much stress, you'll shut them down. Not enough stress, you don't motivate them to actually perform for the next time, right? Like it's this little balance act that like every dog trainer ever has always walked, right? And it's like, buddy, just hear me out. Like this is 3 minutes, like a couple times a day. Like you don't have to spend a lot of time training a dog to get the results.
And that goes kind of directly to my point, right? Like we have to, change is hard. Change is difficult for humans. It's difficult for dogs, but it's difficult for humans.
But owning a dog's a lifestyle. It's inherent change.
Right. And so every time you bring an animal into your home, you have to be ready to make some amount of changes, right?
Agreed.
And if you're not, that dog's gonna show it. And so it is
tear your carpet out.
Right. It's in your best interest to do the little changes, the little things that you need to do, whatever that is, right? That's a very general statement, but you have a very big job in making sure that your dog does not fall susceptible to these traps of being scared or anxious, right? If they're not getting what they need. And this is one of my favorite things to tell people, right? If your dog isn't getting what it needs, they just don't care what you want. They just don't. Dude,
this is one of the craziest things. I can't believe you just talked about this, and we're not going to be too tangential too long, I promise. But like, you just said a thing that I've been thinking about for like 3 or 4 days. Like, people whose dogs don't really like them because they never took the time to build a relationship with their dog, right? Dogs will like you, if you take the time to build a relationship with them. I was with a couple of days ago, a few days ago, maybe, where, like, hey, it was my daughter's dog. She dropped it off on us, went to college, blah, blah, blah. And like, the mom and dad of this daughter, right, like, never took the time to really connect with the dog, right? So like, they don't really, like, the dog's been living with them and kind of making their life, like, just annoying them in their life, right? And they're like, I don't understand why this is happening. And they never took the time to like peel back the outer layer, right? And so like, one of the things in alleviating stress with dogs is getting to know a dog, right? Like, peeling back that outer layer, really getting in there and trying to understand what makes your dog tick, right? I was with them for less than probably 10 minutes before, like, their dog did everything in the world for me, right? But it was because I took the time to go, hey, what you're exhibiting right now in a stress response, because I'm present, right? Some dogs are just stressed out because somebody new's there, right? I'm looking at, big eyes and barking and panting, and eventually, like, he shook it off, and then he became, kind of curious to come in and take a peek, right? And he came in and he sniffed my shoes first, and then he was like, wait a second. And then he crawled up my leg and sniffed my legs, and then he was like, hold up, bro.
There's a whole lot of smells here.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. You're a dog trainer, right? And I'm like, yeah, I hang out with you guys all the time. You don't know me, but like, I do this, right? And so like, I'm hanging out for a minute, and like the mom, the grandma of the dog, technically, right, I guess, right, looks at me and goes, I've never seen him be kind to anyone. And I'm like, oh,
tells me a whole lot about the situation.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
Right. And so like, she's like, but he's so kind to you right now. Like, he wants to play with you. Like, I can tell. And I'm like, I want you to pay attention to the things that I did to begin the relationship. Yes. And I want you to emulate a certain amount of that.
And we could have a whole discussion on that, right? Yeah. Just how to meet and greet a dog.
Yeah.
But dogs have bodily autonomy. They have mental autonomy. All dogs don't necessarily want you to be in their space. Yeah. And let me be clear about something too. We're talking about change, right? Yeah. We're talking about the humans and what we can do to help these dogs. What I'm really talking about is simply putting your phone down, slowing down, and spending some time with your dog. That's my phone. Can you hear that in the background? Yeah, I thought I put it on silent. I'm sorry.
It's all good. Take this for what it is. Phone aside, dude. Like, that's going to happen. It's not like, we're produced in Times Square.
I'm sorry I'm so popular, guys.
I know, right? Like, this dude's phone never stops ringing, right? Like, it is what it is.
But the change we're talking about, and that's kind of what I was getting at without actually saying it, I guess. When I was talking about you can use these dogs to better yourself, because the change that really is needed, that is required in order for you to help all these things we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Is just to slow down and be with your dog. That's it. Listen to them. Pay attention to them. They have so much to teach us.
Bro, we're going to walk into some crazy, right? So I just crossed my legs for the first time on the show, right? This is happening.
That's how you know it's about to get real.
Right? It's about to get real because, like, take it for what it is, right? Like, that presence of mind, right? And this is one of the things that I think as a professional dog trainer, I've done for years, especially whenever I'm seeing clients on a regular basis, that I think every client that I've ever known could benefit from. And I'm going to say a woo-woo thing right now, and like, hear me out, a little meditation. What do I mean by that? I'm talking about the same thing you are. I'm talking about having presence of mind. I'm talking about being present in a place. And if that means that you have to go in, cross your legs, hold your hands a certain way in order to put yourself in a zone where you can feel as though you are actually present in your body, in your mind, in that moment, I don't care what it is that you have to do. You've got to do that. Right.
And all of those things, life, your daughter, your kids, your job, your stress, I promise you it'll all be there when you're done.
Absolutely.
I promise you it's not going anywhere.
But taking a few minutes for self-discovery, I think, is massively important. And it's informative on how you're going to engage the animal.
And think about what these dogs are. Most dogs are dealing with, right? Some of these dogs have really great lives, but think about if you have a job where you're gone for even 4 hours a day,
sure,
right? That's a long time for your dog to sit there alone by themselves. And then you get home and what? You pick up your phone, you go make lunch, you stare at your phone, you go sit in front of the TV, you take your dog for a walk, but on your walk, you're sitting there on your phone. Like if you're not mentally engaged with that dog, you're doing them and ultimately yourself a little bit of a disservice.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, and you're right. You say every client can benefit from that idea. I'll take it a step further. Every one of us, whether you have a dog or not, can benefit from just taking a moment and just sitting with yourself. Whatever that means to you, whether you want to think about what am I going to do today, or just kind of clear out your thoughts or whatever. Just take a moment to let everything else go.
So shift across and tell me how that benefits your engagement with the dog.
Taking a moment and being present.
Yeah.
So, really good question. Yeah, dogs live in the moment, right? Yeah, so one of my favorite questions I get all the time. Oh, is he going to miss me? Is my dog going to miss me? Yeah. It's going to be like sending your kid to summer camp, right? As soon as you leave, they're going to be like, where the hell is mom at? Well, I don't like this. Chris is here.
And then they're going to see a squirrel.
And then they're going to find out that this place is fun, right? Yeah. Then we're going to start walking loops and they're going to get all these smells and they're going to figure out that we're playing a game together and they're going to get to play with Molly and they're going to get, dogs live so much in the moment, right? Do they have concerns? Do they have worries? Do they have anxiety? Do they have where is mom? Do they miss things? Do they have loss? Do they experience loss? Yes. All of these things. But they're so involved in the moment that those things are secondary.
I agree.
And that is what we need to learn from dogs, right? And that is what we are talking about. We're talking about living in the moment, being in that moment with your dog. Even if you only have 15 minutes, give your dog that 15 minutes wholly.
And in so doing, you will give yourself that 15 minutes.
Thank you, sir.
Right. And like that's a beautiful thing. There's a really, really famous dog trainer that's been around for a while, and he's a little controversial these days in some ways. His name's Mike McConaughey. He's out of Bayou Canine in Canada. Good dude, as far as I can tell. I've read, you know what I mean? And, follow him on Instagram, that kind of thing. Right. But like, good dude, creates working dogs, like Dutchie's Mal guy all day long. Right. Like, that's his shtick up there. Right. Here's the thing that he says about this that I think is really important here is he goes, dogs are the most spiritual beings that you'll ever encounter in your lifetime. I don't
disagree with that at all.
And so finding,
except for maybe turtles. Really slow.
Turtles are pretty dope too. Like Uguay was fire.
They move so slow. They have to be. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
But you're not wrong, right? Like they'd almost have to be, right?
They have to
like
be.
Tortoises especially, right? Live over 100 years. Yeah, they move fast. but take this for what it is, right? In the spirituality essence of this, right? Like whether you're spiritual or not, right? Like taking those few moments to be mindful, being present in yourself, primes yourself for that like really intentional engagement, right? And so like that intentionality is a lot of things that we connect back to spirituality, like how I do what I do, right? In Japanese culture, we're taught here in America, at least, that, and I caveat that because I've never lived in Japan personally, but like Bushido is one of those ideas where like everything with intention, you know what I mean? So like even the words that I speak are with intention, the ways that I go are with intention, how I do what I do, the tea ceremony with intention,
And I love this line of talk. I don't mean to interrupt you, but that's exactly what I mean, right? We can use our dogs to start to get that spark.
Yeah.
And if you can live with your dog with intentionality, then you can live your life with intentionality.
Exactly. And wouldn't we all be better off?
The world would be better off individually.
I worked in the Christian church for over 10 years, right? And one of the things that I used to just hammer on whenever I worked in the church was like, Well, why are we doing that? Why are we doing the thing that we're doing? If it's not intentional, if we didn't mean to do it for a purpose, like
we're
why
doing
are
it
we
because
doing it?
we're doing it because
Right.
someone told us to, right? That's
Right.
that's a big difference.
And
right?
I don't work in the Christian church anymore. And by and large, because there's a lack of intentionality in the things that we do. Well, why do we have an Easter egg hunt on Easter? Oh, we have an Easter egg hunt so that our kids can have
because the
fun.
Easter Bunny.
Okay, well, how does that evangelize the world? If that's our goal, right? Like, how does that do that? Well, if you don't have a great answer, pastors, you should find out. But the reality of the situation is intentionality is massively important. Intentionality is how we live. You intentionally go to work every day so that you can pay your bills. You intentionally don't piss your boss off every day so that you can keep your job. You intentionally don't run red lights every day so that you don't get smacked, T-boned in the middle of an intersection. Guys, hear me out. Intentionality is important. And one of the things that I would say is most important whenever you're talking about how to alleviate stress with dogs is being intentional with your action. Mm-hmm. Understanding that there are things that we want that are comforting to humans that dogs don't always enjoy. Not every dog enjoys being hugged. Yes. Not every dog enjoys being kissed on the head.
Especially by people that don't know.
100% by people that don't know. Please don't touch me for no reason, right? My dogs, dude, Phantom, right? Phantom is a 7.5-year-old Belgian Malinois. He's a dope dog. But if you hug my dog, right, he's going to tell you about yourself really fast. And that doesn't mean he's going to bite you. But he does this thing where whatever level of encroachment that might be, right? He kind of matches it. So I had a family over here a couple of years ago. I was like, hey man, everything you want, just don't hug my dog, right? And everybody went, yeah, no problem. And I was like, I need your attention. He just really doesn't like to be hugged. Well, the 14-year-old girl decided, hey, I'm going to hug this dog, right? And he, right? And I'm like, I told you he didn't like to be hugged, man. Don't hug my dog.
And what you just said, that can be a relatively tough thing for people to say.
It's really hard.
I understand that you have no problem telling people that when they come into your home, right? Yeah. But for other people, that can be a tough thing to say, hey, please leave my dog alone. He doesn't like people to come up to them.
It's really hard to advocate.
I get it.
Yeah.
But your dog deserves it.
They do.
They deserve that autonomy. They deserve for people that are coming into their space or especially into their home for them to know, look. So Sydney Michael, right? Sydney Michael is my service animal.
Yeah.
And just like you, right? I go out places when I do bring him places.
Not just like me, dude. You threw me in the deep end with that dog. Don't lie to yourself.
He didn't bite you, did he?
He didn't bite me because I'm a dog
I knew
trainer,
he wouldn't.
son.
And if he did, I knew you'd be okay with it. But anyway, when we go out places, people obviously they come up and they ask hey, can I pet your dog? I'm like, no, he's not very polite. Yeah. And I get that look well, why is he in public? Well, okay, I get it, but I'm not very polite either. And if you walk up to me and just automatically start rubbing my hair, you're not going to like the reaction that you get. Bro, you know what I mean? It's common sense. And we think that these dogs should just take what we give them without thinking about it. But being intentional and being purposeful and just being thoughtful about our interactions with these dogs and saying, and listening to what they're telling us.
Yeah.
We've already outlined all of the signs, the eyes, the ears, the tail, the raised
yawning,
hair,
the shaking,
right? All of these things. If you're being intentional or if you're paying attention when you are with your dog, you're going to recognize these signs. Because not all dogs have them. Not all they're not all the same. They're different in every dog. Every dog is their own personality.
Yeah.
But if you know your dog, that's all you need to know. And you're going to be able to tell hey, bud, my dog's a little uncomfortable. Do you mind backing off a little bit?
Effing off, yeah.
Or, hey, bud, why don't we go spend some time in the kennel?
Yeah.
Right? Why don't I can see that you're stressed. Man, why don't we go hang out in the kennel for a little bit?
You see me do it whenever people come to my house where everybody's here and we're all hanging out. And then I watch my dog and I'm like, that dude doesn't look great.
Yeah.
Hey, bud, why don't we go to the kennel? And he's like, I'm happy to
go eat a treat in the kennel.
Bro, homeboy's out, right? He's just like, I'm out, and we'll dip out to the kennel.
And you're able to do that. And I am able to do that for Sydney Michael and Magnolia Ann because you know your dog and I know my dogs. And you don't have to be a trainer to know your dog. No. You spend more time with that animal than most humans.
Well, let's talk about that
usually.
Briefly. It's important too. But hey, let's get back after it, right? So right before the break, man, we were talking about, really being present with your dog and advocating for your dog and making sure that you weren't setting your dog up for the failure, essentially, right? But like being proactive about how we structure these things, right? So one of the places that I find it really, really helpful, and we're going to shift gears a little bit from that, I find it really, really helpful to really be present for your dog and positive for your dog is anytime your dog's having an interaction with a stranger. Right. So we talked about, hey, man, like the boundaries that dogs will set for themselves because they don't like to be hugged or they don't like their face pulled into somebody else's face. Right. I will tell you that on the street, the people that don't get a chance to say hi to my dog are the people that can't hold themselves together when they see my dog. Right. So if Amy's down the street and Amy is or Brad, right. Either one. Right. Like they're over there and they're like,
just freaking out 20 feet away.
That you have the cutest dog in the world, right? And they're always the people that are very polite, right? On the other side of that, and they go, "Can I say hi?" Right? And I look at them and I go,
I love how people's voices change.
Dude, it changes so much, man. It's almost like they get possessed. Yeah. Right? But like, no kidding.
Talking to an infant.
No, seriously. But sometimes like, just like I just did, man, like they can't control themselves and they're not present in their body when they see a cute dog, right? Or they see a pretty dog, right? And so like, those are the people that don't get to say hi to my dog, right? Those are the people that I'm like, thank you for asking. I really appreciate that. But my dog's stressed out looking at you, right? Like I can look at my dog and realize that my dog's stressed out looking at you. I can look at myself and realize that I'm stressed out looking at you because you couldn't be a regular human whenever you walked up.
And that takes courage. Let's not ignore the fact that takes courage to be able to say that to another human being, right? And I talk to my clients about that a lot. It's like, look, you do have the right to tell people no.
Yeah.
Right. Just because I traveled with Kitty and Copy all the time and other dogs, DY and others.
Yeah.
But I would travel all the time in airports and everywhere. And everybody wanted to come talk to us. Right. It's a Belgian Malinois, German Shepherd, very obviously military.
And God, they're gorgeous. And I just want to touch them because
everybody wants to come up and talk. Everybody wants to come up and touch them.
And in some ways, like civilians want to touch them. Yeah. In some ways, civilians want to touch them because it's almost like they're touching greatness. Right.
Yes.
I got to pet this dog that like murked the shit out of a Taliban.
Which is very, very cool. Yes. And it's very cool. And it is very
It's kind of
awesome.
like meeting a Navy SEAL and going, hey, thanks for, your time, I guess. I don't know. I just touched you.
And that leads to that difficulty, right?
Yeah.
If someone comes up to you and says, hey, I want to touch your dog, you do get that like, well, that's very flattering. Thank you.
Yeah.
But if your dog's not ready for it, then you're doing your dog as a service. And you said it beautifully.
Yeah.
You're setting your dog up for failure.
Yeah.
Right? Because you have a German Shepherd that's a little bit fearful, right? And somebody gets in their face, what are they going to do? They're going to use whatever tools they have available to them. Yep. And you know what they have available to them?
Yeah, man.
Do the same thing.
Yeah,
with
man.
twins.
You got to get them, bro. Twinnies. Right?
But yeah, you're setting your dog up for failure. So I think this entire podcast, this entire episode could be phrased up encapsulated in the idea of like, you need to be an advocate for your dog.
Yeah.
But in order to be an advocate for your dog, you need to know your dog first.
Yeah. And what's going on in that stress,
you have to understand not just, I can see his eyes, I can see his tail, but like, no, I know my dog. Right. I know when he's stressed. I know the situations he doesn't like, because that's one of the things that I think that we really, really miss.
And here's, I'm going to go one step further, not to cut you off, but I'm going to go one step further and say, not only know your dog, but be willing to be okay with a no answer from your dog. You know how many clients I've seen, right? Who are like, but I want my dog to do that. And I'm like,
that's not the dog you have.
I'm like, I don't give an F. Right? Like I want my dog to love being dressed up like strawberry shortcake and put in a stroller and run around. I'm glad for you. Like that's cool if that's what you want, right? Like I want $5 million in my bank account with zero work. That doesn't mean I get it. Right.
Well, I wanted to have a son who was going to play tight end in the NFL.
Did you really?
Do you see me?
Did you really?
That's not possible.
Did you really?
Well, of course I did.
Oh,
I also thought I would be a wide receiver in the NFL too. And my dad squashed that pretty quick. I was pretty sickly as a child. Not the point. But the point is knowing knowing the dog you have.
I'm so over your shit today. Sorry, guys, but knowing the dog you have is the most.
I do this to Evan all the time. It's the first time I got to do it on camera.
Dude, he kills me sometimes. Holy cow, bro!
But seriously, if you're 5'6" and have a gift with math, you're not going to play in the NBA. But
no,
you're just not. I'm sorry.
Unless you're Muggsy Bogues.
And your dog is the same way, right? If your dog had problems socializing and just doesn't like men with beards and a ball cap, keep those men away from him.
Yeah. Right? Why is it, unless one of them lives with you, right? Because every now and then a guy decides to grow a beard, right? Like we started this podcast, I had zero beard. So like
super pumped about the beard.
I love the beard, by the way. I tell everybody all the time, it's my operator beard. It took me 20 years to grow, but get off me. All right. Anyway, but the point is this, right? Is like sometimes like your dog needs, like we talked about in the earlier portion of this podcast, they need the opportunity to grow. Right. And then sometimes, right, they need the advocacy to not grow too quickly.
So I guess what we're really talking about is balance.
It really is. Right. And that's the thing that we talk about in almost every podcast in some way is like, how do we balance this back out? How do we make peace from tumult? Right. How do we make peace from chaos? And that's really, I feel very blessed on a regular basis that's my job. My job is to create peace, right? Like my job is to help dogs deal with people better. My job is to make people deal with dogs better, like really understand the dynamic that we're living in, right? Mm-hmm. And many people have done this for 20 years. And because their dogs, the first 3 dogs they had were tolerant. The 4th dog, they're like, I don't understand what's wrong with this dog. Time.
I've had labs my entire life. I've never had one like this.
I've never had one like this.
Well, you've never had this lab.
You've never had this lab, right?
This
so like, I don't know what to tell you. You know what I mean? We say that all the time. The number of times that even Heather, who's producing this podcast today, right? Thank you, Heather. But even the number of times that she answers the phone here in the office and she's like, yeah, but you've never had this Australian Shepherd. Yeah, you've never had this Rottweiler. Yeah, you've never had this. And don't get me wrong, like we've hammered it, you know what I mean, in our company. Like, hey, that's the thing we say, because the reality is that dogs are individuals. Because you see the archetype of a thing doesn't mean that it does not have its own quirks, right? The thing that I want to say about alleviating stress in dogs is engage the individuality of the animals, right? Like really engage that, understand it from your own perspective, really drive in on it, because it's only in doing so that we can understand those limits and understand what our dog is or isn't capable of. The number one thing that I think that I see in professional dog training that's garbage, right?
The bunk.
Yeah, the bunk, so to speak, right? Yeah, is this idea that like I can make any dog do whatever I want. And it's like, yeah, I can do that with suppression, fear, and punishment. I can do that. You know what I mean? Is that the right thing to do? One of the most common questions that we get all the time in our company is, do you offer a guarantee? And I've hammered everyone who answers the phone to say it is unethical to offer a guarantee when we're working with sentient beings.
This is a sentient being with his own thoughts, feelings, emotions, desires. Autonomy, desires. Yes, I can't make that dog do anything.
Right. I can ask for it and I can reinforce the things that I like.
Our job is to encourage that dog to be 100%. The best dog that it can be. But you have the dog that you have.
But there are also dog trainers who offer a lifelong guarantee in your community, in my community, and communities across the United States, who I would look at them and go, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what you're doing specifically. I know what you're doing, but I don't know what you're doing specifically. I see what you're doing. Right? I don't know what you're doing specifically, but I would challenge you because here's the answer, right? Is if you can do what you're doing, and I'm here to learn as well. I'm not going to tell you that I'm the best thing since sliced bread. But if you can do what you're doing, offer 100% lifelong guarantee and not induce pain,
show me.
I want to know.
Yeah, I'll learn. I want to
know.
Yep, I'll listen.
Because the reality of the situation is that people who want that are totally cool with subjecting, their dogs to a massive amount of positive punishment, a massive amount of sharp pain, a massive amount of I don't care about the dog's feelings, and like. That's not what we're here for in my mind.
And the thing is,
so be careful with it.
And the thing is, and I get that question, same question all the time. Well, what guarantees do you offer?
Right.
None.
Zero.
None. I don't know your dog. I don't know what I'm, but can I guarantee that this program, my program, your program will work?
Who's ever?
Yes, I absolutely can. If you continue what we started.
Not only that,
you take what I give you as a professional and say, okay, yes, you are correct. I need to give this dog, this creature, the respect and the attention and the things that they need in order to succeed. Because that's ultimately what we're talking about, right? Is what does this dog need in order to be successful? How can we set them up for success?
I think in a lot of ways, we're talking about clearing the trash in their mind so that they can understand what we're looking for. You know what I mean? I think about this idea all the time, like even in bite work, right? Where like dogs get like so driven that like there's all this stuff in their brain that has influence on whether or not they're respondent, right? And so like clearing that trash, right? And just going, hey, I'm going to sweep that to the side. Yep. I'm going to sweep that to the side. I'm going to keep it focused on what we're focused on. Right. And then expecting that there's like a learning curve for your animal, right?
Expect them to get it wrong. Yes, absolutely.
Expecting that, hey, we've got to teach, then we've got to train, then possibly 3 to 6 months from now, we can test that behavior, right? Once we've had so many repetitions of it that, oh my gosh, it's like at the penultimate idea of whatever that is, right? Like, or maybe it's the ultimate idea. Okay, now we can test it. You know what I mean? And say, okay, well, will your dog still catch that Frisbee if a truck drives by? Will your dog still catch that Frisbee if a bird flies by? Will that dog still catch your Frisbee if I'm standing over here offering 45 tennis balls?
Or if there's a pack of wild dogs,
right,
a bunch of
you know
cats,
what I mean?
or you can throw any number of things out there.
Or if a fish falls out of the fucking sky.
That goes to the 3 Ds, right? I mean, training your dog is a time-consuming thing.
And so when we look at that, the understanding, right, that we have to also set attainable goals for our dogs, massively important. You know what I mean? And so, you know, in alleviating stress from dogs, one of the first things that I think that I would really, really want everybody to know, and I know this is coming toward the end of a podcast, right? But like, hear me out and say this, right? Maybe this is the primacy of which we should really be thinking is like, how much stress do I expect my dog to deal with? Right. And then what is stress for dogs? Right.
Love it.
And so we went through like all the ways that
goes to your lifestyle, right? What is your lifestyle and what should you expect this dog to deal with in your lifestyle? And that's different for every human. Please continue. Yeah.
But like, you know, we went through and we said, hey man, like here are all the ways that you can tell your dog's encountering stress, right? You know, rapid blinking, stillness, shrinking, panting, yawning, trembling, shaking, all these things that we said, hey, listen, you know, lip licks, ears pinned, big eyes, head turns, you know, all kinds of things that we can go, hey, that's an immediate change in the dog's behavior and we need to pay attention to that. Then, you know, our answer becomes we need to pay attention to whether or not this dog needs to develop a coping skill here, or whether we're starting to see this dog get really uncomfortable, because there is kind of this sliding scale of discomfort, right?
Yes,
like,
there's good stress and bad stress.
Right.
Yes.
And my initial as a person, and I want to kind of like wrap up on this if you're okay with it.
Yeah.
But my initial response to stress as a person might be to go, man, that's a lot of stress. Right. And acknowledge that the stress exists and acknowledge that, you know, I have to do something about that. In the middle, I might be like irritable. I might be like, man, I'm kind of freaking stressed out today. Like if you would leave me alone, that would be great. And I might be able to, I might get like a little bit more excited with my movements. Right. And then like by the time that I feel like I need to bark in stress, right, where I'm like, hey, what are you doing? Right. Whatever that is, you know. Like,
before you bite,
there's been a long kind of upward trajectory of, you know, that stress kind of piling in there. Right. So when we look at dogs, right, a lot of times like their first line of defense is just turn their head away. Right. That big head turn, that avoidance, right, is just to go, nope, I don't want to do that. Right. And then, you know, like sometimes we see, big eyes with it too, because like, hey, I need to pay
absolutely.
attention to my environment and make sure that everything's okay. And then I might pin my ears back and sink into this place where like, I start to exhibit like some lip licks because, I'm kind of really, I'm really uncomfortable with what's going on. Right. And then sometimes we'll watch them progress through this where they can even offer some other things, right? Like they may turn their head away and then yawn because, man, that's a lot of stress and I need to take in some extra oxygen to process it right now. Or they may turn their head away and then begin to tremble and shake a little bit,
or just tense up as you are. Yeah,
exactly.
One of my least favorite things that that people say to me is, "Yeah, he bit and he didn't show anything." Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he did. He showed you 45 things before that dude grabbed you.
A lot of things. You just didn't see them. And then, and you're not a professional and that's okay. Like, I'm not judging by any means, but yes, he did.
And we've said this a dozen times on this podcast and we don't need to go down the rabbit hole on it today, but like our culture around dogs is really uninformed. Right. And so like, that's part of the reason that we're doing this.
And that's part of the reason we are sitting here.
Yep. And correct. You know, to make sure that we can understand that, hey, panting whenever it's hot outside and the dog's been active, it usually ends up one of two ways, right? It usually ends up like because it's hot outside and I just need to cool my body off. And then if I've been really, really active and I've been playing, it's right. And like that happens because like, man, I've been doing things, right?
But what happens when you're not?
I was going to say, when nothing's happening, anyway, it's 72 degrees. You're sitting in your living room
and there's just a person in front of them and they're barking and they're doing that.
Right. Yes. Exactly. And like you have company over and then all of a sudden the dog's sitting there going, right. It's typically because, you know, hey man, that dog is actually stressed out.
Because he's out of shape. No. Right. Yeah, you're exactly right.
The dog's stressed out for being there. Right. And so like really looking at some of these stress signals and going, okay, we need to pay attention to that and then alleviate that. Well, how do I alleviate that? Well, I can pull the stress off the dog by either asking the person to change what they're doing, or I can ask the dog to leave the room, right? Like any way that is, it's going to be safer than leaving that dog in a pressure cooker of stress, only to have them do what you just said, which is, oh, my dog just didn't do anything and then he bit that person. That was weird. And it's like, bro, your dog guaranteed
he was
pinned his ears, right? Pinned his ears, opened his eyes, told them no by turning their attention away from it. Like I've seen so many internet videos where it's like, oh my God, that person bit that person. I can't believe that happened. And it's like, bro, what cognition level do you think that dogs have? Because they're at like a 3-year-old's level, right? So they're going to tell you and they're going to tell you and then they're going to react. And anybody who's ever had a 3-year-old can tell you really, really quickly that like, they don't give you a lot of emphasis on any one thing that makes them uncomfortable before they crack you in the face. Like kids do that. Like it's not like a new thing, right? Like, and I say crack you in the face, you know, whether they throw a fit or they cry or they, you know, but I mean, sometimes they will legitimately slap you, right? Like, but the reality of the situation is that's due to discomfort, right? And there are lots of signs, lots of signals that dispose us.
And if you're intentional and if you're with your dog, you can see them.
And that's why we talked so much about that in the middle of this one, is because like, dude, if you are present and you're not even know your dog
get to that point,
right? You're not gonna have them tip to the place where like all of a sudden I gotta bite somebody, all of a sudden I gotta eat somebody, all of a sudden I gotta take
you
measures
address it at the bottom level.
So one of the things that you said earlier, Chris, that I really enjoyed, right? Because we talk about this a lot in our company is the idea that I need to be an advocate for my dog, right? So person, place, thing encroaches on my dog. I need to look at my dog and go, is my dog okay with this? And then I need to make some decisions based on whether or not I think my dog's okay, right? And if I think my dog's not okay with this, then I need to make some decisions. Now, if the threshold for that is significantly low, right? Where like, hey, we're walking on the other side of the street and my dog loses his mind because people that aren't even paying attention to him walking along the other side of the street just happen to be there, right?
That's not a justifiable fear.
That's not justifiable fear. And we need to have like, you know, we need to have some engagement in that training to make sure that, you know, hey, we help that dog through some exposure therapies, understand the world's not out to get him. But like
new things aren't scary. They're just
this
new.
Is, you know, like for instance, and anybody who's in front of Dina Beach will know exactly where I'm talking about. And if you don't, like look up Center Street on Fernandina Beach on Google Earth, and then find the fudge shop that's over there, and know the story I'm like about to tell for like 3 seconds. But there's a fudge shop in Fernandina Beach that's been there like a freaking 100 years. Like these guys have been doing the same business, marble tables, whole 9 yards, for a very long time. Very, very cool little kitschy business right there on Center Street in Fernandina Beach, which is, you know, in some ways the playground to a lot of very wealthy folks. Like it's a nice little town to be in. And take it for what it is. Really, really picturesque, right? Right there in North Florida, South Georgia, coastal idea, right? So I'm at the fudge shop one day, and this lady comes up and, you know, she's looking at my Belgian, right? And she's like, hey, can I say hi to your dog? And I looked at him and I looked at her and I went, not today. I don't think he's feeling it. You know what I mean?
It's a very acceptable answer.
And she lost her shit on me, right? Like she started yelling at me. Well, I don't understand why you have a dog out here that could be potentially dangerous and blah, 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 right? And I realized in myself, even when she was yelling at me, that was her embarrassment, not mine, right? You know what I mean? And that's one of the things that being a dog owner sometimes, you know, like really takes a lot of fortitude, to your point, courage, to your point earlier, right? To really like hold that line for your dog and not set them up for the failure. I'm not saying that something would have happened that day.
But you were being an advocate for your dog.
Yeah,
you were saying, hey, no, my dog doesn't want that. And I don't really care what you think.
Right. And you are not, and that's tough. This is the most important thing, is you are not entitled to say hi to my dog. I had a client years ago. I never thought I'd tell this story in public anywhere, but I had a client years ago who had a service dog who people just, he was a cute little dog. He was a nice little dog, and people would just push on him. Right. And one day, right, he barked very loudly in somebody's face, and he might have caught him on the eyebrow with something. Right. But it was because that person followed this dog under a tablecloth, under a table to go. And it's like, what kind of honest psychosis is it in people, right? That we have this entitlement to dogs' personage.
It's
right?
because we have this, and I'm about to get on something that I probably shouldn't, but it's because we have this idea of ownership.
Not only ownership, but superiority, right?
Dogs. Yeah. We're superior to them. No, we are not.
I don't think so in a lot of ways.
No, we're not.
They live a lot more clearly and peacefully than we do. Yeah.
When you get to know the dogs the way that we get to know dogs, we are not superior. We might have buildings and we might have governments.
Thumbs.
We're not superior.
Right. It means I can figure it out better
to teach us. Yeah. And that's kind of, to me, that's what this episode is all about, right? Yeah. Is your dog has something that they can give you. This isn't so much about what you can give your dog. And it is, you need to be able to be that leader and give your dog this space and all of these things that we've been talking about. But ultimately it's what is this going to give you? And one thing I would like to close with, one of my favorite things, I think Elizabeth told me this, is change. Because we are asking people to make changes, small or big, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Change is difficult in the beginning, ugly in the middle, beautiful in the end.
Beautiful in the end.
Right?
Ugly in the middle.
It's difficult. Change is very difficult to do. And making these even little bitty tiny changes of putting your phone down and saying, no, I'm not going to look at my phone when I'm walking my dog. I'm going to actually pay attention to my dog, right? I'm actually... You get it. Yeah. You understand that when you were holding your phone, you were getting little bumps of dopamine.
Yep.
Dopamine is addictive. Like dopamine is something that your brain produces and it is addictive, correct? Yep. And your phone gives you that. So when you put your phone down, you are saying, I'm giving up this dopamine and I'm going to look for it in a different manner. Yeah. Correct. And that's difficult. That is difficult to do. What we are asking you to do is difficult. And I want to recognize that.
Yeah, absolutely. But beneficial.
What you get in the end is extremely beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell people all the time, like, hey, listen, guys, if you put away the baby talk and you put away the idea of my dog being a child and you stay focused on relationship you'll fall into the depth of relationship that you never thought possible.
Never known was there.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have no idea what your dog is capable of telling you.
Right. If you
showing you, teaching you.
If you just put away the idea that this dog is here for me and you become there for the dog, the depth of your relationship will be so deep that you cannot figure out, much like other human relationships. I have found that like with certain dogs in my life, not every dog, but with certain dogs in my life, I can't tell where I end and he begins.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I say he because I'm talking about Phantom, but like I can't tell where I end and he begins. It's almost like we have built into this place of solidarity together, so much so that we inhabit a lot of the same space. And take it for what it is. It's because we've done everything that we can to alleviate that stress, give them space where
we did the short-term pain.
Yep. We did the short-term pains, right? To make sure that we had long-term goals and engaged. And man, that's all we're really asking for today.
That's one of the beautiful things that I tell people is like, look, I'm asking for 3 weeks, right? Go home and do 3 weeks worth of work, 2 weeks worth of work, right?
Yep.
3 weeks. You're going to have this dog for 15 years. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Do the 3 weeks worth of work.
Yep. It's not hard.
Set those boundaries.
Build the vocabulary you need to communicate, right? Then use that
Let
vocabulary.
them know that these little things that they're doing, this fear, the tuck in the tail, they're not going to get what they want.
Right. And even so, right? Like pay attention to that. Like, because you know, there are places where dogs get so stressed out that they stop learning, right? Don't stress your dog out too far either, right?
100%.
But pay attention to that in a compassionate way in which you can go, okay, I can feel the vibe coming off my dog and he's done, right? If you do 2 or 3 reps too far, you can always tell because you get diminished results. It's one of the things that in bite work we find often is that people don't want to end at the top of the game. They want to go one more rep because that last one looked so good. And I'm looking at, especially like Bayou Working Dog Club, right? Like I'm looking at members all the time going, end there. That was perfect. End it. Right? Like don't push further. Don't push harder. Don't look for the next most perfect rep. Like I know that was fun. Learn to delay your gratification a little bit and end there. I would say the same thing to anybody who's looking at dogs that are stressed out, right? We talk about separation anxiety. We didn't today, but like separation anxiety is starting to, you know, in the clinical community, we're starting to look at it like a dopamine dependency where the dog's used to as a drug, and
they're getting interaction. They're not getting something that they're used to getting.
Exactly.
Yes, that's all
and so now I'm stressed out because you're not petting me, right? And it's like, bro, like breathe.
You
deep.
need to give your dog time in the kennels. If you're not, and this is a great place to put this very, very easily. If your dog is not getting time in the kennel throughout the day, find some time for them to get kennel time, even whether you're there or not, just so that when they do need to be in the kennel, it's not something weird. It's part of their day. One of
our, and we're going to talk about this and we're going to dip. Right. But like one of our constant commenters said something about value of kennels not long ago. Right. And I'm like, bro, you are dead on it. Like, I don't know who your dog trainer was, Chris.
Is this Mr. Tony Friday?
It might have been. I don't know who I don't know who your dog trainer was, Chris. But like, you know, like, dude, you did a great job because like this dude asks all the right questions. Right. And it's like, dude, this is killer. Right. All right, guys.
It's time.
It is.
What a good episode.
It was a good one.
We went all the way around
and
today.
Back around again, right? But, and so like we need to close it out and say this, guys. Hey, listen, if you are seeing stress in your dogs, there's a couple of things that we can say for sure that are going to alleviate that stress, right? So a little bit more distance, a little bit more time, and a little bit more understanding, right? Those 3 things are probably the big takeaways from today. That if you really push into that stuff and you go, okay, I need to understand my dog. Okay, what does that mean? That means I need to spend time with my dog because we don't speak the same language. Whatever that is, right? Like push into that. And if you have questions, qualms, or concerns, please hit us in the comments. You know, like, share, follow, do the things, right? Like everybody on social media wants that. Like we're here to educate by and large, but like take it for what it is, guys. Push into those things too, because the more people who know this information, the better. And as always, train happy, man. Like, don't do this stuff if you're stressed out yourself, you know?
Keep smiling.
Yep. Make sure that you're in a good place. Chris?
Pay attention to your dog.
Yep.
Reward the behavior you want to continue.
Yep.
It's that simple.
Pet what you want because you get what you've
talked about it all the time.
You know what I mean? Really, really, really solid stuff.
Like, subscribe.
Follow.
All the things.
Guys, and until next time, cheers. This has been Whiskey and Wolves with Evan and Chris. master trainers. And guys, if you need anything else, let us know. Till next time.
Okay.
Rolling? We're rolling. So when
1 minute. Let me get comfy.
take your time. Yep.
All right. How's that look? How's it sound? How's my hair look?
Luxurious.
Just like on the side, a little bit back. No. The
Other side.
Yep.
There you go.
Yep, you're good.
Yeah, just tousle it. There you go.
Oh,
Yep, just tousle your hair. It's fine. I'll pay no attention over here.